Welcome to the Soil CRC's Building Technical Capacity for Improved Soil Management webinar series, Soil Data Resources in Victoria. In this video, David Rees and Rebecca Mitchell from Agriculture Victoria provide a walkthrough of the soil data available at Victorian Resources Online and how the site can provide virtual soil pits for engaging audiences in soil workshops.
Victorian Resources Online is sort of like a front end of, we have soils data, but you can see that we've got a list down the left-hand side, landform, land use, soils. And what I wanted to do initially was to just knowing your context of finding, where you are, and making sure that you're looking at somewhere representative, because people don't realise how expensive it is to have a soil pit. It's worth it, but it's quite a cost. So you want to make sure that you're putting it in the right place and it's relatively representative. So things like representative environment, because things like soil and vegetation are basically the result of environmental interactions over time. So in many cases, often the vegetation people want to know what the soil type is so they can interpret the vegetation, and the soils people want to know the vegetation so they can help interpret the soil. So it's quite interesting. Unfortunately, with a lot of clearing, we don't have that situation, so we're more reliant on the landform and the geology and so forth. So if I just, and you can see that this is the general site, and Brian was talking about South Australia being divided up into the pastoral and the agricultural areas. In Victoria, we're divided up on basically water catchment areas. So we've got about 10 areas, and you can see in the second paragraph down that we've got all those sort of, in blue, we've got all those sort of areas sort of mapped, which we'll go to in a minute, and I'll invite Rebecca to give us an example, and if he wants to sort of throw questions in, they can. But just at the broad level, if I go into landform and there's landform description, and if I go into geomorphology, which gives the background of the sort of landform, if you like, and you can see that down the maps there, increasing complexity of the type of landform that you're dealing with. And the reason that's important for context is that you've got similar processes acting. So, for example, in that yellowy area on the right there, the Northwest Plains, that would link in with a lot of what Brian's talking about, in that you've got the dune systems and so forth. So a lot of the cropping areas, the broadacre cropping is given the rainfall and the landform is in that area. But then you can look down, and I'll just click on the broad one, just you to have a look. Just something very broad there, so the northwestern dune fields and plains, and then you can work your way down. So depending on where you are, there's different processes working up the riverine plain. So that's just a bit of background there, and I can talk. That's probably the subject of another talk at another time. If we go then straight back to soils at the broad level, at the statewide level, we have a soils map, which again is sort of stitched together by Mark Imhoff and myself a few years, about 7 years ago there, and that sort of gives you an overview of looking specifically at soils. And it's roughly at about 1 to 250 scale, but it sort of gives you an idea. So if you're in that brown area there, so for example, that brown area is soda soils, so that means texture contrast soils that have got sodic subsoils, and then that will help you hone in on the area or give you an idea of the area that you're going to have a look at. So that's an overview. But if you want to be specific, then we have to go back. We'll go back to the first page and just go back to our division of 10 catchment management regions, CMAs, and just will say, okay, where do we want to, where are we looking, where do we want to go to? So, for example, if we go to North Central, which covers the last one here, which covers Bendigo and Rebecca's area, we can see that we've got an image there which shows various things, and then there's various specific things, and you can see there that one highlight there is soil pits in the North Central region. So we can actually go specifically to what soil pits we have and those potentially that could be there, but we haven't had them written up because of resourcing. So, for example, if they're sort of blue or whatever, then we can highlight them. And I'm looking for Rebecca because I don't know. Rebecca wanted to go to a specific site, and if we go to, I think we're talking about Sonata. So if we just pick one at random, because I'm not as organised as Brian as he was with his board. And you can see that Brian showed an example that they had in South Australia of sort of like a sheet sort of description. And again, here we have a description. This one will move on because it's not particularly agricultural, but that's good because it's a range of soils and just sort of shows the range of soils that we have. But we have a general description. We have this Australian soil classification, and we can talk about classification later because basically, we're talking about movement of water and nutrients through the soil and whether the soils help or hinder those. So here we've got a relatively shallow soil, and there's descriptions, and then we've got pH values, and then we've got the characteristics, the sort of summary up the top in the key profile ones there, and then we have more specific data that you're seeing similarly in the South Australian examples, and we tend to concentrate on the top of the B horizon or the top of the subsoil. The reason being is the subsoil, and you'll see this in other examples. The top of the subsoil is usually the throttle of the water and gas nutrient movement going up and down through the profile, because it is actually a thing, as well as the biological access and helping the soils. Mind you, looking at that topsoil is probably it's only 5 centimetres, so it's pretty tough, and there's not a lot of nutrients. And then you look at the vegetation, and it's fairly thin and scrubby, and this may well have been turned over in the gold rush time, and it's taken over 100 years to recover. So that's in state forest. So that's one example. We'll try and find something that's a bit more agricultural. And it just so happens that we've picked up a brown soda sol, mottled brown soda sol, which happens to be the state soil of Victoria. Nothing pretty, but then that's what our farmers have to deal with. Australian farmers have to be very adaptive to deal with, unlike the red ferrosols, the red friable soils and some of the alluvial soils and better soils that they have for growing crops in the US and Europe, but we have to deal with these types of soils. So we find that, again, the pictures are really helpful, give you an idea as well as descriptions, because we're getting more and more visual these days. Again, you can put sort of colours there in brackets of the monthly colours, and again, we're sort of looking to see, whether there's going to be a problem for water movement, as well as the effect on, rooting depth. So we've got a fine sandy loam over a medium heavy clay. So, it's a bit like you're going for a run down a road or so, or around the corner, and you suddenly hit a wall. What are you going to do? You have to go either side of the wall. So, water is going to hit that top layer of the medium heavy clay and decide, where am I going to go? So I go sideways until I can find a way down or seep down really quickly. But I might hand over to Rebecca to give her point of view from a practical point of view.
Thanks.
Come in, Rebecca.
Thank you, David. That was a really good overview of some of the really useful information that sits on Victorian Resources Online. So David sits in our research group in Agriculture Victoria and has been really instrumental in a lot of the actual development of these soil pit data information sheets, and then being involved in getting it translated to online. So I've had the privilege of spending some time with David out in the paddock and going through some of those very detailed sheets that Brian put up earlier as well, and it's a really great way to get information. But I won't take too long. I'll just jump in and say, so I work in extension, and one of the really useful things about all this online data is that, unfortunately, in situations like we're in at the moment, we don't always have the capacity to either get a soil pit dug or get out into the paddock before we go into an area and chat with farmers. So I work in soil extension, and my job is to talk about soil health with different groups out there. So I find it really useful before I go to an area, because I grew up in Geelong and I'm now based in Bendigo, so I'm starting to learn some of the soils in the area that I live in. But if I'm going up to Mildura, for example, they're really unfamiliar soils to me. So I find going into Victorian Resources Online and following that process exactly that David went through, where you go to the CMA region that you want to go to, you hone in on that map sheet, and then you look, okay, this is where I'm going to be doing the talk, or this is where we're going to be doing our trial site, whatever it is, and then getting up as many of the soil pits in that area as I can. And for me, this is a really good educational tool, because I can go in with a lot more knowledge and be a lot more prepared for some of those local issues and local soils. So, especially with all the data that sits behind it. So there's been a lot of soil tests that have been done, and I can, jump in. And if we don't have a soil test for the area that we're going to be doing the trial, or that I'm going to be doing the session, then I can get some information from here. And if you scroll down, David, as well, you can also see the management considerations. So I guess that's one of the ways that I use this data. Because we don't always have the capacity to jump in a soil pit beforehand and get ourselves familiar with what's going on. So I find it really valuable using all this historic work that's been done. So I guess that's all from me. Just wanted to talk about how I use the information, and it's great to have people like David and Brian around that have been involved in a lot of the information that's been developed in the past. So fantastic to have them on board.
Thank you for watching. If you found this information useful, there are many more related projects to discover at our website. Please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more Soil CRC webinars, project updates and conference presentations. This webinar series was produced by the Soil CRC, jointly funded through the Australian Government's National Landcare program, to build the technical capacity of natural resource management agencies, landcare and grower groups to deliver soil health information to farmers for improved soil management. For more information about our projects, visit soilcrc.com.au.